Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
I'll say this about Evolution. The women's division needs more TV time.
Woo! Believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence. The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
And welcome to the Wrestling is Real podcast. We're recapping Evolution tonight here on the program. And listen, quite a confident pay-per-view tonight. I will say one thing when it comes to WWE, that the women's division is not one of the biggest problems that this company has. The truth is, and I've said this a few times before, the women's division needs more time. When you have saturated the men's division over and over and over with some of the matches they have and some of the storylines they have, and, you know, some of the promos that we get out there that have been tired and over, and all the TV time that they actually have available, why don't the women have more time and are given something more to work with? Because the truth is, there are a certain amount of women that will get some airtime because they're attached to factions, things like that. But for the most part, I mean, we didn't have to wait 7 years for another pay-per-view like this. But there are certain things that the WWE can really take away from this pay-per-view that they need to be understanding more of. It's the part that the women's division has not been overexposed or oversaturated. Like, we really haven't had much time to get ourselves too buried in all the stars. It's obviously clear that they have quite a few new stars that they can actually start working on and building up off of. My problem is just some of the choices of who they decide to go and use. I don't get Lara Valkyria. I don't get her appeal or why she's into the storyline with Bayley and Becky Lynch to start off the night, and just in general being given the IC title and being put in storylines with both of them. I mean, it feels like it's a favor being done for her. I don't feel like she really fits that role at all. When there's other women in the division that they have, even in the Battle Royal, there's other stars they have that could be doing more with. And they've had stars down there in the women's division that could have been brought up years ago. I mean, yeah, Solruku had been hurt, but obviously there's a big appeal for her. Lash Legend, there's an appeal for her as well. I mean, I don't know why they put her up there with Jakara Jackson and then never went back up to the main roster again for whatever reason. And while you have Tiffany Stratton and Roxanne Perez that have plenty of airtime, it's apparent that they have quite a few other stars they could be using and doing more with. And there are some that they're not utilizing well. So looking at everything overall, one major eventful thing actually happening tonight, and that was Naomi cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase, which there was not much of a rhyme or reason as to when she would do it. It's just the matter that she had the briefcase. I mean, never really got the modus operandi as to why she had the briefcase and how she would go ahead and use that in a storyline with anybody else. But of course, storylines don't matter. So she gets in here. There's not much of a beef between Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, but hey, the opportunity presented itself. She could get into a triple threat match, could use the briefcase, quickly jump in there after a long match with Io and Rhea, battling it out, and took advantage of it. So that's fine. No problem there. I will say this about Naomi is that it's nice to go and see that prior to her leaving with Sasha Banks, they went out the door. It's one of those things where, you know, Sasha Banks has moved along as Mercedes Moné, and she's made quite a name for herself, and she's doing quite well over AEW. And Naomi as Trinity over in TNA, and her year-long run, mostly with a Knockouts title, was good for her. And it helped her stand out. Of course, this late in her career, because he's been around for so long. As that original generation of the Give Divas a Chance part, she was part of that. And never really got that just due. But she's finally gotten herself to a point, at this point of her career, where she gets this opportunity, and she's done very well with it. So the company giving her a chance here to go ahead and excel and now have that belt again in this heel role. Okay, fine. And she has a gimmick in place, more or less. It's just for her, whatever was going on with Jade and Bianca Belair, there's that going on. But after everything that happened in the match, that Naomi was able to go and still come out after the match she had with Jade Cargill after losing. That was the one thing that was a little bit weary, is the fact that she went through so much damage and had taken Jaded into the Slim Jim table, but yet she's able to go ahead and make it down the ring, recover just enough to go and get out there and win with the briefcase. That's the part's a little bit far-fetched. That's a little too overkill. But hey, I guess we kind of let that slide and she wins and that's it. Okay. Other than that, I mean, that's the most important thing that really happened. And then we move along, and we just had matches that just had no title changes, nothing really moving the needle at all. But one of the things I will say is that it's clear that they can have other stars that can be moved up into the roles that are here. Like where Roxanne Perez has been used right now, I haven't liked the way she's been used on the main roster, but now I guess her and Raquel is working okay, and they have that figured out. That's fine. I don't get why Candice LeRae has a spot on the main roster, because there were plenty of women right now on that main roster. Listen, when Michael Cole, I mean, accidentally, yeah, but in that battle royal says Candice Michelle, 3 or 4 times? And Wade Barrett calls him out, justifiably so, but like, when you don't really care much about Candice LeRae, that just is kind of a thing where she is a throwaway. So why does she have a spot? There are plenty of other women in that company right now that could have moved up from NXT and taken Candice LeRae's spot. Okay. Not to mention the fact that even when you had certain stars you took out of NXT or the main roster and you let them go before or after WrestleMania time, right? And they moved along. Like, the thing is, there is no shortage of talent on the women's roster in NXT that has not been called up. But there is a neglect in that women's side. They're not overexposed. They're not put out there and we're getting them thrown down our throat all the time. And the truth is that it's obvious. Look at what the crowd did tonight. They were really receptive to all the women. That one of the things I did like in most cases is that we did used to get more than one women's match on a pay-per-view. And that was good. And I would prefer we still had that. In the meantime, the women have more of the role going on right now and more interest, in my opinion, I would imagine, over in NXT as well, because that is the focus over there. But then again, there's also this favoritism of who gets to be spots in the main roster that I don't get. So like I said, start off the night with Bayley, Lyra Valkyria, and Becky Lynch to start off. And really, it was Becky and Bayley that people were paying attention to, which was the focus of the match in the first place. Let's make that clear, too. But then we get into the match. I'm like, okay, and Lyra Valkyria is into this match, and she gets her parts in here, but it's like, I feel like she was just a wrench into the whole story. But a good finish in the match with Becky Lynch. To be able to go ahead and flip around to get Bayley into a pinfall. That was cool. That looked really good. And Becky once again shows why she can be champ here. And yeah, people can go ahead and give the Becky Hogan chance to her and give her flack, but she still holds up and she's still doing really well. And it's not the main belt, by the way. It's this IC belt, which for her is just is a good prop for her to go and have. And I mean, there's not much of value to anybody else in that main roster right now to have that IC title. Same thing with Zelina Vega. You know, they mentioned that it showed her in the Battle Royal being as part of the U.S. title, but otherwise having that belt doesn't mean much for her. But with Becky, at least she's got a belt, and there's something with her legacy that goes behind, in front of her that says a lot. So that's good with that. The next match just gave me a hard time. Okay. When you have Toxic Attraction, which when I was watching NXT, because I haven't really watched that much. I mean, I saw clips here and there, but I have not tuned on to CW to go watch. It's just not, I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. I mean, I'm not watching network TV necessarily, and they're not necessarily easy to stream, and I don't feel like getting them out of my way to go stream it somewhere else. But when I look at it and I say, okay, JC Jane is your champion, and I felt like she was the weakest member of Toxic Attraction. So Priscilla Kelly is out the door. The only reason I feel like JC Jane even was important is that she had that deal with the segment in ring with Gigi Dolan where she busted her nose. Like, that was it. That's the only thing I really felt like there was anything out of that. It was like by accident there was something of her. But JC Jane was the weakest member. And now she's the leader of this influence faction, which they're just kind of pairing players together. Fallon Henley was part of another faction, and Jasmine Nix has kind of like been out of the mix. To have Jordan Grace out here, and they had this pseudo alliance with Blake Monroe, which I never really understood it making sense. But again, it was matched up so quickly because Blake Monroe, she debuted about a month ago, hadn't had her first match until Friday night, or excuse me, on the Great American Bash, on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, and then she's out at ringside because Jordan Grace asked. And for the moment, I just feel like maybe they're going to put Blake Monroe, that she'll become the pseudo leader of Fatal Influence, and she'll kind of hold on to those members because there's no explanation as to why she decided to go ahead and use the belt onto Jordan Grace to go ahead and beat her. But obviously, they want to have Blake Monroe as a heel, which is the right way to go with her. So they quickly turn her heel. And what is that going to mean for her now? And still, JC Jane continues to go and be the champion here. I just don't get how she sailed forward. I feel like it's like that. I don't know if she's gotten any better, really, to me. It's like there's not much of a difference, but like there's nothing to her, to me, that warranted her to be the lead of a group, let alone be champion. But that's just me. It's open to interpretation. And now JC Jane could very well go into Slammiversary, take on Masha Slamovich, which is now winner take all. I've actually thought it was going to be Jordan Grace that would go ahead and take it because they want to put the Knockouts title probably on her and have her hold both belts, but no. But I would not be surprised if next Sunday I'm here on this microphone talking about JC Jane becoming TNA Knockouts champion and holding on to the NXT Women's title. Well, it could be a reality because I have already said this about TNA. Going into Slammiversary 1 week from tonight, I feel like WWE is going to be allowed to be able to go and book as they want in the world title matches. And the TNA World Heavyweight title match with Trick Williams, they're going to be able to book it as they want, where Trick Williams comes out the winner and retains. And I could very well see where JC Jane hold on to both the Knockouts title and the women's title. I could see that happening. And if it does, it's kind of a payment. It's kind of a recompense for TNA to be allowed to get their chance at a TV deal under the negotiations of CAA, which would have been a Nick Khan reference because he was working with that agency. It's not going to be WWE or TKO representing TNA on their broadcast deal. Instead, Nick Khan's just doing a nice thing by probably giving TNA a good deal in representation by setting them up with his old buddies at CAA to get that broadcast deal done so they can get themselves on a cable channel network, whatever they're going to get. And then 2 to 3 months from now, 60 to 90 days per Carlos Silva, the president of Anthem Sports Group, saying on the Ariel Helwani show that he's going to get a chance to go and get a new broadcast deal in the works. They're negotiating right now. And CAA is going to get them the best deal possible. So TNA is going to be allowed to be booked as WWE feels fit to book. That's what I think Slammiversary is going to be next week. And I am trepidating the thought that we're going to have that happen, where former WWE stars are going to be the ones that will go over, and that certain TNA stars are going to get buried. I kind of feel that direction is going to be happening, and it's all going to culminate at Slammiversary, of all places, of all events. It could very well happen. Fatal 4-way tag team match for the women's tag team titles. So Judgment Day with Roxanne and Raquel. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair being put together, and now Charlotte Flair is getting cheered. She's now a face. She can't be a face on her own, but she can with Alexa Bliss at her side. So that connection has been coming on. And I guess for her, that's fine because Charlotte wants to be more lauded and, be able to go ahead and be able to flip. Because she's always been more of a heel anyway. And I think she just wants to be able to go ahead and say that she can be a face and she can get over as a face. Because she really hasn't been at that point in her career for the most part. Sol Ruca and Zarya. And look, Sol Ruca, they got a big thing about she's got that one move, Soul Snatcher. And, you got a lot of stars that come in from the women's division that are very one-dimensional. And that's the part that really bothers me the most, is that some of the stars you have here, there's so much more that can be done. But remember, once Vince is gone, Bruce Pritchard, I guess he's not going along with Vince's modus operandi. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, the click booking is going to make it simple. The Sol Ruca thing was all about the surfer kind of girl kind of thing, and they just not have really followed up on that. Sol Ruca's just out there, just has a certain look, and that's it. And honestly, I just feel like the women that stand out more than anything else are the ones that kind of go in cosplay, and they just kind of get noticed more because of the look they have when they come out to the ring. And tonight we get a simp fest, not just for the females going out there to watch these wrestlers go out there tonight, but the men. Simp fest galore. Where guys are just, they're ogling over the beautiful women here. So there's a lot of guys, they are simping big time hard over Sol Ruca, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, and all these others. It just feels like that for the most part. Kabuki Warriors getting together just to get together. But remember, as Kabuki Warriors, they were much more decorative and much more into the Japanese, pressing hard into that, which I know everybody kind of felt was very typecast and very stereotyped, and that's not what they want to go with. Right. But this here, and I'll tell you one thing with Kevin Nash talking online and reaching out and saying to Raquel Rodriguez, work bigger. Because the idea is that she is one of the taller, more established, bigger build women on that main roster, and that she should work like a big, it's big man style, basically say. Like the way that Nia Jax works. Raquel Rodriguez should play more like that. Because she stands out. She's just taller. She just got more stature than the other women on that roster. That she should do that. Like the Hannah Bob is indicative of what the working bigger is. And she agreed. And she responded really nice to Kevin Nash about that part. So Kevin Nash is right on that respect. But I never agree with those booking in Nitro and WCW 98. I don't agree with that at all, the way it was done. Which his booking in 98 is very much indicative of what the kind of booking we're doing today. Because remember, he used to just do vignettes, just to have vignettes out there, and not much wrestling because he could do it. That was kind of his role into it. He wasn't necessarily taking it overly seriously, but he's having fun with it. That was fine. That's how he was. And he got himself over a lot. So Raquel and Roxanne retain, and Raquel carries the load, which is fine. Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus. Man, Trish Stratus is timeless. Now, not in the same way that Toni Storm is timeless, but Trish Stratus is kind of stuck in time. She just doesn't get old, and she still works really well in the ring. There's not much chemistry between these two. I know they work together in ways, but Tiffany just feels kind of off. Man, when she hits the moonsault or the swanton, man, I just feel like Trish was getting smashed around because just where Tiffany would land would be tough. It was just really stiff with her. And Trish took it to her credit, but I don't know. It's just Tiffany hasn't gotten that much better. Her in-ring work is a little bit stiff and a bit tough. And, every girl that has to work with her, she's the one, she is the darling, and they got to get her over. She's a champion. But man, I never see her look like she's got everything all together. Even with the promos that she cuts, just still not there. And the thing is, it's as if I mean, part of it is she's kind of moving away a little bit from the Barbie character, which is kind of what they portrayed her at WrestleMania, and they should delve more into that. That's what they did with her character originally, which is why she got over. But now they just take all that stuff away. It's like another woman just kind of just as a look to her, but that's it. But one-dimensional. Tiffy Time, that's all we got. And I just wish there was more to her, because all these storylines here, the setup with Trish, the setup with Charlotte, I just feel like there's nothing going on. And look, it's amazing how they go ahead and talk about the fact that, oh, but look, she took on Bayley, and she took on Trish, and she took on Charlotte, and look at the line of stars she has beaten up to go and be where she is today. I get it, but it feels like it doesn't really feel like she's gotten that far. She's in the role now, and she's capable, but there's just more to her that I wish there was. That's another woman that I really wish that had a lot more development. And there could be things you could do to kind of just take that mix and just do something with her. There's a lot of things you could do. Various storylines when it comes to like who she could be working with. Even when she was doing stuff with Nia Jax, that was not a bad idea. But you could do love interests. You could do stalker. I mean, you could do a lot of things where you just have various things going on with her character just to give something more for her to work with. I mean, just, give a plot here. Give some other stars to work with, something like that. And not just in ring, but something more to work with her on. I don't know what. But either which way, she could use some of that. I mean, that's the part of the difference between Tiffany and Trish in the first place. With Trish, I mean, we know of storylines that she had. Her matches for leader were, again, of legend. Her stuff with Mickie James and the whole lesbian storyline, also of legend. But like, it was the stalker thing. It worked. And it's like, some of those kind of things could happen to a Trish Stratus as well. And of course, the compromise of dealing with a Vince McMahon or just some other leadership character, things like that. I mean, there could be more can be done with that character. Because remember, with Trish Stratus, it's not just her wrestling. She had all these storylines she was a part of that also added to her and why we all laud her. And he still goes out there at 49 years old, still works really well. Like, it's amazing. Well, there's more that's got to be done with this. So, like, that's the thing with this, is that it's a difference in styles and also the fact of how over is Tiffany Stratton going to be when she doesn't get much more to do backstage or more intertwined storylines with other characters that will also bring more out of her. Because if she's just going to go out there and have matches that are not great, then you gotta hide some of that with something more to her character to add more to it. Because that's the other part. Why is it just the women are going to be allowed to just be noticed for just their wrestling acumen, just for their in-ring work? There's much more they can do. That's much more you could do with them to become more fleshed out characters, more dimensional, more everything. But they don't want to do that. You just want to keep it like a sport. And it doesn't work. I mean, that's not professional wrestling. I don't know what they're going to do. But anyway, that's all it is. No Holds Barred and Bianca Belair added as a special guest referee. My biggest problem is, okay, Jade Cargill playing the face, being vulnerable, doesn't work right. There's another woman that should be working big. She should be working like how Kevin Nash said to Raquel Rodriguez. Jade Cargill should be working big. Not just because she's like a more brooding character, but she's strong. She's strong. And I feel like they really don't do enough for her in a lot of ways. And I'm like, Bianca Belair being the guest referee, why is she not wrestling? Like, why does she not have a match? You added Bianca Belair at the end. What are we doing with her? This is a woman that is great in the ring, all right? She's had multiple WrestleMania main events or WrestleMania matches where she won the women's world title. And I don't know. It's like they're not wanting to go along with it. And this is not like where she's gotten old in the tooth or anything like that. No. But she's been up there. And it's not like you can't just keep her up there at the top of the card in the main event. Why not? Now, if we're going to go somewhere here, I would figure that with Naomi now being the women's world champion, unfortunately, she's on Raw now. I mean, unless Naomi's going to, or unless Bianca Belair gets to go and move over, but isn't she over on SmackDown, I guess, right? we're not going to see Naomi and Bianca Belair, which would be a match I'd like to go and see after everything that's happened. With all the triangle here with Bianca, Jade, and Naomi, why doesn't Bianca get into the role here and go after Naomi and get that belt? Because I wish that would happen. Like, make the switch over there. Make her switch to another brand. And let's go that route. Because who do you have for Naomi now that she's won the Women's World title? Who is she going up against? I mean, the briefcase letter allowed her to go ahead and take on whoever. And for the longest time, she was always trying to go after Tiffany's belt, right? Or when it was Bayley that held that belt, the SmackDown Women's side, the Women's World title, the Women's Championship. But no, they decided to go, no, it doesn't matter which belt she goes after. She decided to go into that match and take. But now she has no opponent. So what are we going to do to set her up? Anyway, Jade gets the win. Basically, this feud between them is pretty much over because no holds barred in this match. Pretty much is all ending fine. Like, that's one storyline that we actually had that actually came out from things going out for a while. It's the one storyline we have. That was it. Otherwise. And the Battle Royal, when I see, first of all, I know for those fans that are watching on Peacock, they showed a couple of the main stars that were coming out to the ring, introducing them. Somebody just seen the commercials, but then like there was like a good 15 women that we saw come down to the ring, and I'm saying to myself, a lot of diversity on the roster, which is great. Listen, and I noticed like who they have in this roster. Yeah, they got a lot of good credible stars, no question. Nikki Bella, Chelsea Green, there's two standouts, like Chelsea Green being a part here and could still be up towards the main event somewhere. She could be going after like an IC title or US title like that before. She was a US title holder, but she could have gone after the main belts. But at this point, they're not going to look at her as someone to go ahead and go up into the main event. On the women's side, no. I guess they don't have that plan for her. And she's one of the few people that have a gimmick, the Secret Hervis. That's it. Like, no one else is really working on gimmicks. But Chelsea Green knows in her career, she's always done good with gimmicks. That's why Laurel Van Ness worked out so well. And that's what she had a whole thing with, and various things they did with her. But here we go now. And, that's fine. So, Maxine Dupree, there could be so much you could be doing with her, but like the whole thing with the Alpha Academy means nothing. She's just kind of anchored in that group with not much of a reason why. Which is the other thing I don't understand, where you get Chad Gable that's out of that group and part with American Made, but then you keep these factions together when there should just be a split. But they don't want to do that. Jada Parker, Last Legend, Lola Vice, you get that NXT feel of it, which they've had these stars for quite a while now, and they've been recognized. The one thing is, I'll say that Atlanta crowd, there was a lot of NXT, a lot of fans were NXT familiar, which was nice. I can appreciate that. Then you got Clowney Jordan. Didn't see a whole lot of her part of this. Tatum Paxley, Izzy Dame, and the culling, it's like, okay, that's kind of sort of a gimmick, but not really. They're just like more of a goth feel to, I guess. BFAB has been completely kind of like lost. Part of Street Profits, not part of Street Profits. Now I guess Street Profits say they lost the tag team titles, but I guess Ron Killings is going to go join them. It looks like there was some kind of a teasing out on X about that. Who knows? Michin, who has been kind of like left out of sorts and really not much to be done. Ivy now with American Made. Now that you have American Made without Chad Gable because he's out for injury, well, what else are you going to do with American Made? They're just kind of like there. And it don't really matter too much right now because Chad Gable was the lead. But it's like, I don't feel like some of these factions, you get anybody else from those factions to get any better or get to stand out anymore. We just don't see it. Candice LeRae, listen, Johnny Gargano, I don't know what you got on them to make sure that your wife has work, but I mean, I just don't see where she has a spot over a number of other stars I can think of that could be up there. No, listen, it's just that she's been she's been around working for a long time, and like I don't know what it is that she has over everybody else that allows her to be in that spot. Like I said, there's other stars I could think of that could be taking that spot. Like, you know, I can see Lash Legend or Kalani Jordan right now taking a spot from her if they wanted to go and do that. Totally. Jordan Grace could take her spot. Let's just be cleared out that too. Just to make it on a point. After everything's said and done, Stephanie Vakira is the one that gets to take the win. Devil's Kiss, you know, several times to get the crowd into it, especially doing it to Lash Legend to knock her out of the Battle Royal and win. Now she gets to go ahead and have title shot at Clash in Paris. And as we heard, for whatever reason, Michael Cole calls Candice LeRae Candice Michelle, tells you that, you know, it's like the quiet part out loud. Nobody's really paying attention to Candice. Just saying. And they really love Stephanie Vakira in that roster. They really do love her. They just see big dollar signs with her for however they look at it. And with the Women's World title, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, look, we've seen these stars take on each other in NXT. It wasn't the main roster. I did forget about that. They actually did work on the main roster together in matches. But again, no storyline that was really put into play that we really have a whole lot. Like, what happened in the main roster to really get this matchup going? It's always from the NXT portion. And it never really got restored or kind of restarted in a proper way on the main roster. They never did it. So we just assume we have to remember what they did in NXT, and that's what they had to do. But it was smart that this match just didn't finish up as a respect match, and that Naomi came in and took the belt off of both, which is fine. At least she gave something noteworthy at the end of the night. That at least works for me. But overall, one-dimensional stars, and you could get away with that because of being women on the roster, because, you know, inherently, I guess guys, you know, that are the bulk of the wrestling fans out there, they're going to pay attention to the women more because we like looking at them. We like to see them in the ring, and we kind of have our own fascinations with them, however that is. That's what it comes down to. And the truth is that WWE does the least, honestly, with their women's division compared to others. Because for me, I've always thought that the TNA Knockouts division was always a good focus for them. And some of their lean years as well. Because there's been a lot of times you can always talk about great matches they had in the Knockouts division. And some feuds that will really stand out. Okay? That's just where it comes from me. And you have to say that when you look at some of the matches they've had, you think of what Gail Kim did at the onset. You think of Tara. You think of Taryn Terrell. You think of Beautiful People. You think of Madison Rayne. You think of Jordan Grace. You think of Rosemary. And I'm sure there's other names I can also bring up to the mix. But like I said, Knockouts division always gave a lot. And I mean, really, before the Divas got a chance, the Knockouts division was really standing out. And I will say that AEW is around the same cusp. I think slightly more invested in their women's division, especially some of the stars they brought on board, because there's quite a few times that the women do stand out in those AEW pay-per-views because of all the matches that they have. I mean, say what you want. When I look at All In Texas, that women's world title, the combination with Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm, standout match. I loved it. I really like that match, and I like those two stars, and they're separate ways. And one of the things I got to say about that is that with Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm, they have actual fleshed out characters. They're more than one dimensional. There's a lot more to them than you could say there is, aside from the ring work. And that's what I want to see more of. Even going back to Glow, okay? Growing up in the 80s and watching Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, sure, was the ring work excellent? No, not necessarily. I mean, you had a couple of standouts. We saw Tina Ferrari, a.k.a. Ivory, out there tonight as some of the legends they were showing on television, which was great. But for me, I used to love the fact that you had Glow with every certain character of every certain type in ring, and they were just amazing characters. It was really wonderful. But I mean, I give credit where credit's due. I mean, WCW really never went into the women's division at all. Ring of Honor only brought it into their fold only in the last few years. But for me, I really have appreciated that WWE has been able to go ahead and get that women's division as sometimes to be very important. And in the stagnation that they have right now, you could definitely go more with women's matches and not have to be very storyline heavy because the guys are going to be invested in them anyway. It really comes down to that. And the thing is, too, is that you have more than enough women's stars right now on the roster that you could call up to NXT, from NXT to go up to that main roster. And there should be so many matches being done right now with other stars they have that could be where Becky and Alexa and Bayley, even Naomi to some of that matter as well, should be working more with the younger talent to get them up. Because some of the stars they have right now, especially even going into that Battle Royal, there are just certain stars that should be working with with some of the other stars already. So if you got Stephanie Vaquero already working up in there, I mean, she's established, but like Lash Legend and Jada Parker and Kalani Jordan, you know what? You should be working with those stars right now, and they should be in with other established stars. Why is it just Tiffany Stratton? And why is it just Lyra Valkyria? Like, Lyra Valkyria should be counting her lucky stars. She gets to go and work with those two stars right now, because there are other women that they can start building up right now just on having the veteran matches, okay? I mean, Tiffany Stratton right now has taken advantage of the fact that she has a Trish Stratus to go and work with, and here we go. Right now you got Nikki Bella in there. Let's put her in with somebody else, and let's get something more with that. But you have stars here that you could build up and go with the veteran versus the up-and-comers. You got up-and-comers on NXT you can move up right now, and that are on the main roster you could be doing something more with that you're not. And those are easy storylines to tell. Easy stories to tell, pretty simple, and you can do something more with it. Well, there's not much more to say about it. That's it. So Evolution was fine. Like I said, there's more that can be done. But you still see clearly they could be doing more with some of the roster they have and giving some more time and more development, character development, and more storylines for these women to work with. Because that men's side does get stagnant right now, okay? A little too overkill on that. Anyway, come back this Wednesday for another Wrestling Guru podcast, because wrestling needs us.